started now. Welcome Hanover County students and families to our day 3 of our college boot camp. We are excited about our college panel discussion today and the guests that we have joining us to talk about what are the most important components of the college application. We all know that this is really important information and we are excited about all the wealth of information that will be shared today. First, I'm going to have all of our Hanover County counselors introduce themselves. I am Miss Alga and I'm a school counselor at Mechanicsville High School.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mrs. Edwards and I'm a career counselor at both Atlee and Patrick Henry High Schools.
Good morning. I'm Mrs. Corbin and I'm a career counselor at Hanover High School, Hanover Online School, and Hanover Center for Trades and Technology.
Good morning, Allison Bolander. I am the career counselor for Mechanicsville High School.
All right, thank you all. So we have our college panel guests here today, and I'm going to have them come on and introduce themselves, starting with JMU.
Hi, I'm Adam Anderson. I'm an Associate Dean of Admissions here at JMU, and I work very closely with all the applications in the greater Richmond area. So glad to be here this morning.
Good morning, everyone. To Carla Moore from Old Dominion University, and I'm also the specific contact person for Hanover County Schools for ODU.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kira Zajac, and I am the counselor for Hanover with the University of Mary Washington.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Lassane. I'm the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at Randolph-Macon, right here in Hanover County, the center of the universe. I think that picture of me was taken, I've been at Randolph-Macon 12 years. I think that picture of me was taken in my first year, but I've been in the field for about 30, as you might can tell. Great to be with you all this morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lauren Bennett. I'm a Senior Assistant Director at the University of Richmond. I am the admission counselor for the greater Richmond area, including Hanover County. Really excited to be here.
All right, thank you all so much for being here. I know that our students and families really value your input. So now we're going to have each college discuss what are the most important components of their college application. If questions come up, you feel free to put them in the chat. And at the end of our presentation, we will go through our questions in the chat to help answer anything that has popped up throughout our session today. So without further ado, Mr. Anderson from JMU.
Okay, good morning. Now, when we were originally sent the email, I think from Miss Alga about, let's rank these 6 different components towards the application. And then I emailed her back and said, hey, I have 2. It doesn't mean that I didn't finish my homework. But what that means for JMU, we really, the only required information that we have with your application to complete is that we need to have your transcript that shows all the classes that you've taken. And we also just need to know what you're taking the senior year, and I think all that's on your transcript in Hanover County. So everything else that we have is optional. So that would include any kind of standardized tests, extracurriculars, recommendation, personal statement essay. All those things are very optional for JMU. And to be honest, don't hold a ton of weight in our process. So if you think about, I think as a general rule, we all look at all different types of things with the application and you hear the term about doing a holistic review. But, if you think about every little segment making up a pie, not all the pie slices are equal, so really the strength of your curriculum and what types of classes that you're taking, and then the grades that you're earning is really going to, be that first hurdle on whether you're going to be competitive or not for that college. So that is most of our focus is going to be looking at your transcript with Hanover County, whether that's if we like to see college level courses, whether that's IB or AP or dual enrollment that you have opportunities for in your different schools. We take a look at how strong, how many of those types of things that you have, also your advanced courses that you're giving a little extra weight to. We do look at those. And then we also will look at your grades. And, you know, it's more than your GPA. The GPA number means a little bit different at each school based on how they weight things. So we really look down at what your actual grades are and how hard have you challenged yourself with that. So those two things I would say are definitely what's given most of our weight. I mean, I rarely would ever have a conversation with the student to tell them, hey, if your test scores were 10 points higher, or we weren't happy about your involvement, or your essay wasn't as compelling, you know, but pretty much most of the discussions that we have with students, if they weren't competitive in our process, usually comes down to, we would have liked to see you taking a more challenging curriculum, or your grades we would have liked to see be a little higher. So so that's kind of why I answered that with just those two, but definitely transcriptive grades are most important for us.
All right, everyone, to Carla Moore from ODU again. Great to see you all. I did the ranking of all of them. Not to say that the two that Adam mentioned are certainly important as well. You'll see they're the first two on my list, but I just wanted to briefly go over them all just because I know people ask about all of them. So just as they pertain to us here at ODU. As you all know, at ODU, we're in the business of making monarchs. We're in the business of admitting. I often will be very generous in trying to find reasons to admit many of you all in Hanover County, and just working with you with where you are in your school systems, what your schools have to offer, et cetera. I do look at the grade point. I look at the grade point as it pertains to what's offered at Hanover. What is the grading scale at each individual school? What did you earn in those classes as it pertains to you? So grade point is considered different depending on where you're coming from in the curriculum that's taken, but I do take a look at that. The transcript of courses is always important. I'm looking at those core course curriculum classes, looking at the maths, the sciences, the social sciences, foreign languages, just making sure that the core has been covered and that you've taken advantage of what it is that your school has to offer. So as Adam mentioned earlier, if there is an AP or an IB curriculum available, if there is an opportunity to dual enroll, if there's a technical center, whatever it is that there is to offer, how did you fare in that? You know, what did you take advantage of? What did you take and how did you perform? So that's kind of the approach I would take in looking at those courses. Also, I'm looking at the grade trend. Again, I'm in the business of looking for reasons to admit. So I understand if maybe you started off a little rocky. You know, we're human. Sometimes that first year, second year might not be as great, but I'm looking at trend. So did it get better in the junior year? Did it get better, even better in the senior year? You know, are we knocking it out of the park in our senior year? How were the courses over time in math, science, social sciences? You know, were those consistent? I understand that sometimes people have a bad semester. You know, they might have a bad year, maybe something happened. We've all been through things. So I'm just looking for reasons that the trend went positive so that I have a case for an admit. That way we can give you that opportunity. Looking at SAT or ACT, we at ODU are test optional. We were one of the first institutions in the Commonwealth to adopt the test optional policy years and years ago. That did not change for ODU. We continue to be test optional. If you send them, of course, we're going to use whatever's to your advantage. So if you got a better score the second time around, or say you got a higher score on the ACT versus the SAT, you know, we're using whatever's going to help your case. We're not using it against you. So, and oftentimes if you're test optional, we go with that. You know, we work with what we have. If you decide to test and say you do well and it gains you something, like an additional scholarship or puts you in the running for something, we're going to use it to your advantage. So we don't want anyone to think it's ever going to be a negative check on the box, or it's ever going to hurt to send in any scores that you've worked hard on and that you've taken time to do, but it's not required and we won't ask you for them at all. If you choose to write the essay, looking at grammar, how did you form the paragraphs, the sentence structure? What are you writing about? Sometimes I find some interesting information in those essays. Sometimes there's something in there that maybe it's not relayed on your application itself, or maybe the school counselor didn't tell me about, or there's something I didn't meet you, so I don't know. But sometimes those essays give a little bit more insight on a student. And again, if that's one more thing that I can use to fight for your case, I'm definitely going to look at it. And then extracurricular and recommendations. We learned from the financial aid folks at ODU, that's where they go to find you more money. So sometimes you're looking at just your initial merit offer, but maybe there's another scholarship out there and they're like, let me see if this person was involved in this club. Let me see if this person was in this organization. Let me see if this person earned this award. There's so many other pockets of information and funding out there that our financial aid folks will use for internal scholarships, endowed scholarships, private donations, things where it's very specific, but we don't know anything about you because you didn't include that recommendation or you didn't include that extracurricular resume. So I often tell people that is your key right there. Tell me what you did. If you have become an Eagle Scout, if you're first chair in the orchestra, whatever you do, put it in there because I'm going to pass that information to help you. It's always to your advantage. So that's kind of how we break it down at ODU. I'm happy to answer specific questions later. And of course, you all can find me as well. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so not unlike Adam and Takarla and their institutions, and really all of ours, the GPA and the courses that you take within the context that you're taking them are really important. So these are sort of in descending order of importance, the ones that we've listed here for Randolph-Macon. And so, as Adam and Takarla have said, the grades are a best predictor and course curriculum, rigor of curriculum, are best predictors of success for first-year students in college. And I think that's fairly consistent with national research and certainly when we do our assessment here at Randolph-Macon. But, oftentimes I'll get a lot of questions about GPA from parents, from students that, hey, the next county over has a different grading scale. And had I been there instead of here, it would be different. And I'm disadvantaged because, and what we do at each institution, and certainly here at Randolph-Macon, is we put you in the context that you're in. So you're not necessarily competing with the next county over or the next school over. So it's what you do within your context. And so worry less about the scale and the points as you are just doing the best that you can with the opportunities in the curriculum that you have in your setting. I'll echo the importance of the essay. If you think about the information that we're going to get from you, the essay is your opportunity to have a voice, to speak, to tell us why you're a little different and why you might be a great fit for our institution. Grades and scores are going to give us some trend, some indicators and some important indicators, but really essays the opportunity to talk about you as an individual. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity and spend a little time. It's also something you have a little time to work on. That most of us are going to require it. And so, or it's an option for you. And so then, and you know that now. So, practicing that a little bit, doing a couple of drafts would be recommended. Mistakes creep in when you do things last minute and pull that. And so you don't have to do this last minute, so take a little effort and polish it a little bit. And I think you'll be more pleased with the result. Test scores, again, they're optional, and I think optional in most all schools. So the rule of thumb is that if you feel that your test score is a good reflection of your ability, send them. If you don't think they're a good reflection of your ability, don't. It's not going to be held against you. we had about 70% of the students chose not to submit SAT or ACTs with their applications last year. So you wouldn't be an outlier. Doesn't mean don't take it. I mean, you don't have to take it if you don't want to, but take it and then see, will this advantage my application? Does this reflect positively on my candidacy? Extracurricular activities are also important. Show just what you do outside of class, how you might positively impact our campus community. One rule of thumb there is that depth is more important than breadth. And what I mean by that is that, having multiple, whole lot of activities probably means that it's a mile wide and an inch deep. You're probably not impacting all of those equally. And in college, you're not going to have the opportunity to do it all. So it's not about, sometimes in a yearbook, it's like how many pages can I get on? That's not the contest here. It's what are you making a difference in? What are you passionate about? So what are you doing within those things that you do? And certainly work outside, in the community, having a job is an important one. Letters of recommendation, certainly from your counselors or teachers, but then folks that you might have worked with, folks that you know. And again, this is not how many can I accumulate. Sometimes there's also a rule of thumb in admissions that when we used to work with paper files, there was a saying, thicker the file, thicker the student. Okay, what that means is that, if I'm getting 15 recommendations on a kid, what is the issue about this kid that he needs 15 recommendations? Just a couple really quality ones is good enough. And it's helpful. I'm less impressed with the stationery that they come with or the title of the person sending them, and more impressed when they actually know the student. So choose those people wisely. Last, demonstrated interest. What that means is, has a student expressed some interest in the institution? Visiting campus is a strong indicator of interest. Or are they just shotgunning out applications to a bunch of different schools and not putting much care and interest into their college search? So, if you're interacting with us, if you have an interest, express that. I think it could be to your advantage. It's kind of human nature. You kind of want someone who wants you, right? And if that's the case, then there's nothing wrong expressing that in your application or in your engagement with the institution.
Hi, Lauren Bennett again from the University of Richmond. So at Richmond, we utilize a holistic review process. So I actually had a really tough time kind of ranking all these 6 different things. I actually pulled a few different people in my office, and numbers 3 through 6 kind of varied with different people in the office. Transcripts and GPA were always 1 and 2. But I think that's a really great thing about a school like Richmond, is that we look at all different parts of the application and we actually make a decision as a committee. So something that I might really be drawn to of a particular application, someone else that's read or reviewed the application might really hone in on a different aspect. So we're really spending a lot of time going through your application and the different portions of it. My colleagues have touched on a lot of great things, so I don't want to repeat them. But for Richmond specifically, we do recalculate your GPA. So we are just looking at your unweighted core courses. There's nothing you need to do. Your school counselor will send in your transcript to us and we take care of it on our end. But we do place a lot of emphasis, as you can see, it's my #1 ranked thing, is the classes that you're taking. So while maybe we're stripping the weight of those AP, IB, dual enrollment courses, we do place a lot of emphasis on looking to see, are students taking those classes? Are they challenging themselves? Those are things that we like to see, that you are taking those advanced courses. With extracurriculars, I saw a question pop up in the chat about jobs. So Yes, please list anything that you are doing outside of the classroom. So that can be things involved in your high school or outside of your high school. So whether you're on the soccer team, band, key club, or maybe you have a job, maybe your parents both work at night and you actually have to take care of your siblings and cook dinner for them. Things that you're doing with your time, those are things that we want to know about. With Richmond, we are a smaller institution and our students are very involved across campus. So this just helps give us a good idea of the type of student that you're going to be here at Richmond and how involved you're going to be, because we are looking for active community members. For your essay, we have the Common App or Coalition application essay. Those are the two applications that we accept here, as well as an additional essay that is required for Richmond. So we take a good amount of time reading through those essays, have multiple people look at them, and it's a way for us to get to know you a little bit better, since the academics and personal side are both equally important to us at Richmond. So really getting to know what you're passionate about, maybe an experience that was life-changing to you, whatever you want to write about. We just want to get to know you a little bit better. For recommendation letters, as my colleague David was saying, we would rather see fewer recommendation letters from people who really know you. So maybe your school or college counselor, a teacher or a coach or a part-time job manager. Those are the things that we're looking for, people that can really speak to your character, your leadership ability, how you are in the classroom, things like that. And then I put SAT and ACT and SAT at the bottom because we are test optional again this year. So we are not test blind, which means that if you submit your scores, we will take them into consideration, but there is no need to submit them if you feel that they are not an accurate representation of your academic ability, or if you don't feel like taking the test. We are not going to look at your application negatively if we don't have a test score. So we're not going to assume you took the test and did poorly on it. We're just going to use the information that you sent to us. So yeah, those are the things that we're looking at. And again, we review applications holistically. So there's a lot of different things going into it and a lot of people reviewing your application. So don't get too hung up on one thing over the other because it's a culmination. Thanks.
Sorry, apparently I was not unmuted. You would think after a year of this, we'd be better at it, right? So I'm Takira Zajac. I'm with the University of Washington. And so I had the same problem that the University of Richmond did when we went through this. I was easy enough to put the SAT and the ACT as number 6 because I am a test choice school and we've been test choice. That's not just because of the pandemic and everybody not always having the opportunity to take them in the last few years. We normally are a test choice school. Our merit scholarships are based off of your GPA and your test scores if you choose to send them to me, or they are your GPA and the difficulty of your curriculum. So you're not hurt by sending me the test scores. You're not hurt by taking both of the tests, and you're not hurt by taking both of the tests multiple times. They both work differently for different students. I did much better at the ACTs than I did at the SATs. I'm not particularly good at time math tests. So the SATs, where that was half of my score, did not work out so well for me. And we acknowledge that too. So you have a choice for that. So that one was easy enough to put at number 6. Transcripts were very much important to us. We want to see that you're challenging yourself with your curriculum. And by challenging, I will go a step further than everybody else. It's not just the AP, IB, dual enrollment classes that you guys are taking. We acknowledge not everybody has that opportunity to even take those courses, but challenging yourself could also be that you failed Algebra 2 the first time around and took it again and got a B this time around, and then continued with math and took your pre-calculus or your trig or that statistics class and didn't just go, okay, I have them all and I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. You continue to challenge and work at it. So we also look at that as part of your challenging curriculum. We do like the essays. I personally love the essays. It gives me another opportunity to hear your voice and hear some of the things that you would like to tell me. So I definitely read those if you use the Common App to apply, because that one comes with the essay. If you use my personalized app, that one does not have an essay on it. But I do have students that send me essays or like a resume so that I can still have the extracurriculars that they do, because I also feel like that's an important part of getting to know you as a person, the things that you do outside of school, even if it is working, and don't feel bad about that. I worked all throughout high school and babysat. So it's still part of who you are. And if you're juggling that and still getting good grades, then that's great time management. So that's not looked at poorly for you. So yeah, I only need 2 letters of recommendation. I know a lot of people have said things about that. So I only need 2. You don't have to send me more than that. But then I'll let it go with that, because everything else was kind of touched on and it's pretty much the same.
All right, thank you all so much. That was such amazing information for all of our students and families. I think we could definitely see a trend that the top 2 that we hear about a lot is the strength of curriculum and, you know, the final grades in all of your classes, but it's also important to see what else you all look at in all the aspects of the college application. I loved hearing about the test optional with the ACT and SAT scores, because that's a question that we all get a lot, especially during COVID times. And I loved hearing about the college essay and how, you know, it's the students' opportunity to have a voice. A lot of students will ask us, well, do I need to write it since it's optional? And I always tell them, you know, it's your opportunity to tell the college more about yourself that's not reflected on your application. So thank you all again. And now we're going to go to our chat to see what questions we all have had this session.
All right, so we had a lot of really good questions in the chat, and I will bring up a few that weren't answered to throw out to the group. So the first question was, how would you rate or consider advanced classes versus AP? Would a student who took advanced classes and made all A's be at a disadvantage with the lack of an AP course?
I'm glad to take a stab at this, and other people can chime in when they need. This is a question we get all the time, and or they'll ask us how, you know, if I get a B in this class in an AP, is it worse or better than getting an A in an honor or advanced class? So to kind of talk through that a little bit, you know, every college is probably going to have a you know, again, we're reviewing you by your own high school. We're not comparing you to another school in the county or another school, you know, down the road from you or across the country. But we're looking at, you know, what's available to you at your high school, you know, in terms of curriculum. If, you know, every college will kind of make a decision as they're going through their process of what does a good student look like from here, that's going to be competitive for admission. And where that usually comes down to in terms of the, you know, curriculum is, you know, do they have, you know, AP, dual enrollment, IB courses, you know, how much of that might be expected, might be different for each school, each college that you're applying to. And then there's advanced classes would still be looked at as, you know, stronger than normal classes, but some colleges will definitely be expecting to see some of those college level courses and not just the advanced courses. So, you know, I want to be real about that. But there is kind of a balancing act that goes along with this. So a student that does take a lot of AP, IB, dual enrollment courses, but might end up being a C student or, you know, in that curriculum might cause some colleges a concern about that. Yes, they took a very tough, challenging curriculum, but they didn't do as well as what we were hoping, you know, in there. Or it could be, you know, a student that hasn't taken any advanced courses or college level courses, but they have straight A's. That might also be a concern. So it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act of how hard have they challenged themselves, and do they have kind of grades to support that? And we'll sit through our committees and kind of decide what, you know, what a good student would look like from that high school. And I do want to say one other thing that we usually get as a quick follow-up was like, well, do you have a quota? You know, are we only taking, you know, we had 100 applications, from Mechanicsville High School, but we're only going to take 30 of them. We never do that. So we don't go in there with a quota in mind or anything like that. And typically, especially from public institutions, it might have a difference in, how many in-state and out-of-state students that they can bring in and have different price points. Some of those public institutions might look at those things a little bit differently with out-of-state students versus in-state students. But basically, if the people are meeting what we wanted to see, from that high school, we're going to admit those students. So if we only get 30 applications from one high school, but they're all great and meet what we need, we're going to admit all 30 of them. So I want to get that little myth out there as well. I've probably said enough. Feel free to jump in from anybody else.
Thank you for that answer. Unless anybody has anything else to add, I'll move on to the next question. Okay, so what about the student who is not 100% about which college they want to attend? What would they consider? What do you think that they should do to help narrow down that search? We wrote in the chat, definitely come and see your school counselor and your career counselor, and we can help with that conversation. But from the college perspective, do you have any advice?
I can jump in on that one. Oh, go ahead, Takira, unless you want to start it.
Well, so what I was going to say, one of the things that I'm a first gen, and one of the things that I was not given as a piece of advice when I was looking at schools was that it's not just the school, but the area the school is in. You're going to live there for 4 years. So make sure you like the area itself as well as the school. So come and visit. And for all of you that did visits over the summertime, because it's easier, we respect that, we understand that. Come back in the fall or the spring. College camp, we're weird in the summer when there's no one there. It's just a ghost town. It's not the same feel as it is when there's actually students moving about. So I would come back in the fall or the spring and actually check out the schools that you were truly interested in and see which ones feel more like home to you. That was the best piece of advice that I had when I was looking at schools. Go ahead.
I was going to add on to that. Even though you may not know exactly where you want to go to school, you may have an idea of programs that you're interested in. And so maybe you could start to research, programs that are strong at the institutions or programs that are strong in the areas that you're thinking about. If you're thinking about staying in state, going out of state, majoring in XYZ, you could maybe start to look at, okay, where would this program fare well at? Where would I go? Am I looking at a research institution? Am I looking at somewhere that's more liberal arts based? Like Takira said, am I wanting to be more in an urban setting? Do I want more of a rural setting? Do I want a big school? Do I want a small school? So you can kind of look at some of those external factors to help you form a structure and a platform for where you could fit, what's fitting the criteria that you're thinking about. And then you can kind of form your list and start to look at some of those options and think about where you may want to do those on-site visits and start doing your research.
Great, thank you. The next one is, can you touch on the Common App and whether or not your school uses it?
For JMU, we are using the Common App. This is the first year that we're going to be on it. So I'm not sure if it made your list when you were publicizing which colleges were going to be on that, but you should be able to find us on that. So for JMU, we have the Common App, we have the Coalition app, we have our own app. We take every kind of application, it seems, other than smoke signals. So we give you lots of options to complete that for us.
UMW is also on the Common App. We also have a personalized app that you can access from our website, and that's got a lot less questions, but it does not have a space for extracurriculars or that essay.
Yeah, Randolph-Macon, we're also on the Common App, and a question I get a lot about the Common, and we also have an institutionally hosted application, which in our case mirrors the Common App. Question I get a lot is, well, should I use the Common App or your application? Which one's better? Every school that is a member of the Common App and uses it signs an agreement that they don't place more value on their application or any other application than the Common App. So it's really up to the student, whatever you want to do, whatever's easier for you. The purpose is to make the process easier, but schools should not put a preference on one form versus the other in their decision process.
The University of Richmond, we use the Common App or Coalition application, and I saw a question come in about what is the Common App. So the Common application is basically an application that has just general demographic questions. So you'll fill out about your address, your parents, your birthday, those types of basic questions. And then you'll actually add the institutions that you're applying to. They might have additional institutional questions or essays. And then the Common App will also have an essay prompt that you get to pick from. There's usually like 5 or 6 or 7 different topics you can pick from, but it's just a way to kind of streamline the application process to make it easier. So you're not having to retype all of those answers to the basic questions over and over again. So once you finish the Common App portion, then you'll add in all the institutions that accept the Common application that you're applying to, and then answer any questions or essays they have for that particular institution. Also on the Common App is the extracurricular list where you'll list out all of those. And Common application or Coalition application is essentially the same thing, and we don't have a preference of which one you apply with.
And ODU also uses the Common App, and we have our own ODU specific app as well. You can choose which one you want to apply with.
Okay, thank you. The next question, with the ACT, SAT test being optional, will that be true for the class of 2023? So I think we have some juniors on here who are trying to figure out, should they be taking those tests this year in the spring? Or what are your thoughts about that for 2023?
UMW is a test choice school, and we have been for, I want to say, about 7 years now. And we don't have any intentions of changing from that. So we should still be test choice in 2023. Taking the test is never a bad thing. And honestly, depending on what you think you might want to major in school, it may actually be to your benefit. Like if you want to do any of the pre-health, pre-law, if you want to do education, it's really actually not a bad idea to go ahead and take those tests. It's good practice for some of the other ones that you have to take that are also timed tests. So if you want the practice to make sure that you do well later on with some of the other ones you have to take, it's not a bad idea.
ODU will also remain test optional. We have no plans to change that.
That'll be the same for JMU as well. We've been test optional. We'll continue to do so.
At Randolph-Macon, we're test optional for the next 2 cycles. This has been a pilot. So I anticipate that will probably remain, but there may be some schools that for 2023, most schools, when they announced that if they had not been test optional, they announced that they were for that 2020 cycle and the 2021 and 2022, but they'll probably make a decision at some point this year. So that may not apply to every school. So the response you get to a lot of these kind of questions that are into the future, it might be, it depends. So you're just going to need to check with each school about their policy. You can kind of cover yourself by taking the test and then seeing how you do. If you end up applying to a school that requires it, you got your test. If you end up applying to a school that is in schools that are test optional, you can send it or you don't send it. So, if you want to just be, this probably the safest thing to do, given that none of us can predict the future, would be to sit for it and see how it goes. May not be the answer that you wanted to get, but that would be my advice on the top.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I was going to say
sorry.
the same thing, Ms. Bolander. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on that question. There was a question about scholarships based on SAT, ACT scores. and scholarships based on grades, GPA, essay recommendations. So they're kind of wondering, will it help them to take that SAT, ACT as a scholarship optional thing? And then what other things could be potential scholarships?
I'll just jump right back in and come back with that. It depends, which is, I'm sure, not helpful to you, but it varies from school to school. At Randolph-Macon, we make our merit aid allocations and decisions based on how you applied. So if you did not submit the score, we will lean on your grades. If you did, we will include it. So back to that kind of rule of thumb, if it helps you, submit. If it doesn't help you, don't submit, both for admission and for merit aid. Now, that may be different at other schools. So there are some schools that they can be optional for admission, but they require it for their merit aid distribution. Randolph-Macon's not one of those, but there may be schools that have that expectation. So you really just need to. I wish it was the same for everybody and this was all easy, but we're very different places. And so that's why you'll see probably different policies from place to place, particularly given all this change that we've been through. But that's the answer for Randolph-Macon, and I think for some other places.
Thank
Unfortunately,
you.
we haven't made a decision if we'll be test optional next year or not. So just check our website, and you don't need to have a test score to be considered for merit aid.
So here's a different spin on a question. What do you recommend for someone who wants to apply to colleges abroad? Or do you think they should apply to schools with a student study abroad program? So what's the benefits between the two, in your opinion?
I think I would approach that with, I mean, I don't have any experience with helping anyone to apply abroad. I think it would just depend on family dynamics and finances and, are you wanting to live outside of the United States while you're doing your undergraduate studies? Or is it something where you just want that experience, where you go for a short period of time or a semester? I think that's going to be personal to each family and the dynamics that surround that. Also, you'll want to look at the rates. If you're going abroad, is it on a scholarship? Are you expected to pay more? Are there the same type of advantages with your finances and things like that? So I think that's going to be an individual decision if a family decides that a student would study abroad as a resident versus if they would just take a trip for a summer, semester, spring break, and then return back to domestic studies here in the United States.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, if you're looking at attending or going to college at an institution that's abroad, that's a 4-year, at least a 4-year commitment to being abroad, which may be great for you. Most of our campuses would probably have study abroad options that could be for a semester, for a year, or a semester, or in our case, we have some January terms. So 1 month to 4 months to 8 months. And so, you have those options. But if you're looking at a school abroad, that's a 4-year deal. So, how much do you want to be abroad and for how long? So ask yourself those questions, and I think you'll arrive at your answer.
Additionally, some of the schools, like my school actually does a swap program with some of the schools abroad. So you can still attend UMW and then for a year swap with other students and go to a school in Tokyo, as an example. I don't know that that's actually one of my programs, don't quote me on that, but as an example. And then we would take some of the students from that school. So you guys would literally just swap spots. So you pay the tuition rate of UMW while being at that school. And sometimes that could work better. Then you can try it out and then come home and then try a different one if you wanted to do it again. And then that way it also gives you the opportunity to go to multiple places. It is an interesting experience studying abroad. I lived in Italy for a year and I did not speak Italian. So consider that too. It's a totally different lifestyle, environment, language. as well. So it could be entertaining, but there's a lot to take into account for that.
All great answers. Thank you for that. Does each college have a percentage of students that you accept from the Hanover schools as a whole? I know we touched on, it isn't, we take a certain percentage from Mechanicsville versus Atlee versus, so is there a percentage for the county as a whole?
Not for me.
I know at JMU, yeah, we don't look at that information at all. I have no idea.
Same.
Same with us.
Nope, no percentage for ODU.
All right, so that sounds pretty global. I'm trying to go back through to see if there are any other questions. I do know there was a question about a concern if you're a straight A student and then you get to your final exam and you get a C, is that going to put a ding for you when y'all are looking at transcripts?
I believe on your transcript, we just see the final grades. Yeah, so that's all that we would actually see is what the final grade ended up being.
So no worries with that. You can have an oops and it's just whatever ends up on that transcript. They're not looking back to your grades or what your grades are previously for each individual component.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that for that situation, I love Allison how you put it, have an oops. We've all had those. I know I have. And if you've encountered a situation in your high school experience that may have impacted your grades, I would, recommend sharing some context on that and not leaving it for us to figure it out from your transcript. Our applications, I know on the Common App, you have the opportunity for a personal statement. If you think there's an issue that needs a little further explanation, I would share that with your counselor, who could provide some context on the recommendation the counselor might submit, but also tell your story. I'm also a parent of Hanover County students, and one who went through. She was an equestrian and had a brain injury, which really impacted, some of her attendance and performance for high school. And it took a little explanation to figure it out, but most of the colleges that she applied to, most all of them actually, were very understanding once they knew the whole story. If they just looked at her transcript and like, whoa, what happened there? Well, provide some context and just tell us your story. We want to admit you. That's why we're on this call. And so help us understand your situation.
Awesome, thank you. Is it better to apply with a declared major you're not sure about versus being undecided?
For UMW, it's okay to be undecided. You don't actually declare your major until you're about a sophomore. Gives you time to change your mind. I started out as a forensic science major. I ended up being a business major. I'm completing the MBA program now. It's very much possible that you're going to change your mind. If you tell us what you're interested in, we design your schedule for you your first semester at UMW. So you telling me what you're interested in allows me to put you in some of those classes so that you can see if you actually like them or not, but you don't actually have to declare a major.
At ODU, you don't apply to a specific major as a first-year freshman. You're just applying to ODU in general. And then once you become a student, you will have an orientation process and an academic advising session where you talk about the general ed curriculum that's required for any bachelor's degree, maybe some introductory courses to a specific path you may be thinking about. And if you're thinking about a certain major that may require additional admissions apps or specific admission, then you'll start to talk about what that looks like moving forward. But you're not expected to come in with a specific major already nailed down, nor are you applying specifically to something in your first year as a freshman.
We're pretty much the same, except for we have a nursing program which is a little more, you're directly admitted into the nursing program. And so that's probably, but normally with every other major, you're just admitted to the college. So being undecided, that's our second most popular major. So there's nothing wrong with that. But nursing and programs like that might have a more linear coursework expectation in a smaller cohort, is a little bit different.
At Richmond, all students come in undeclared, so you won't actually declare your major, similar to some other schools, until your sophomore year. So if you have a pathway and an idea of what you want to study, great, you can start taking those intro classes. But if you have no idea, that's also great, and you can just kind of explore.
At JMU, it doesn't matter what you pick for a major. We're going to use the same admissions criteria for everybody, despite what you're choosing for a major. I would say, kind of echo a little bit about what David was talking about. There are certain programs that it's a good idea to, if that's something you're interested in, definitely put it down. Just to help with the advising portion, to make sure they're getting you into courses, especially early on, that you may need. And you're hearing this kind of from other schools, there may be some other requirements for a particular major once you start taking classes at JMU. We have some majors that you do apply to get into, and they may have some different criteria based on what your prerequisite courses look like, and certain grades that you may have to earn to advance within that program. I will say that even though we haven't really talked about this, but there definitely are colleges out there that do review things differently based on what your intended major is. So I would say, it's not something to game the system with. Don't try to pick a major that nobody else would like. But if it's whatever, if you are applying to a school that does admit by major, you should put down your correct major, because they also often have some very high hurdles to switch from one major to another. So it's something important to look at. And I will say for JMU, the only exception to an intended major that you would need to put down is if you're going to do anything in the any of our visual and performing arts. So if you want to do an art, music, dance, theater, musical theater program, we do have an additional application that you have to complete, and they will do a portfolio review for art students and auditions for the performing arts, so that they can see if you're a good fit for their program, in addition to just being a good fit for JMU. So that's only one from the very beginning that you would have to go into, is if you're looking into those programs.
All right, thank you so much. This is our last question for the chat. If anybody has any other questions after this one, feel free to reach out to your school counselor or your career counselors on the panel today. We are glad to help you. So regarding our ACA program that we have at Hanover County, the question is, how do you work with freshmen coming in with that associate's degree? What does that look like?
So for JMU, we do, we have anybody that's receiving that official associate's degree, they would basically have their gen ed courses waived at JMU, and they would start in with a lot of credits. Those credits would all transfer in if they've worked, towards that degree. They still apply as an incoming freshman. They may have a lot more credits, so ultimately your scheduling should be easier because you've knocked out a lot of your things, and you would focus more within courses within your major and things like that. But that's how those things work. There are certain things that are called guaranteed admission agreements, but those typically only apply to students that have done that associate's degree after they graduated from high school. So almost all of the schools are built that way, that you can't have a guaranteed admission but you would just apply as a freshman. We'll let you know. But of course, all those courses would be seen as, competitive college level courses and may help you out with that part of it.
I think they were wondering too, if they should come in then with a declared major, because they're going to be coming in, not taking those gen ed classes. So they kind of would be coming in not really as a freshman.
I think that would be important to do just from an advising standpoint, because hopefully, it also depends on how majors are built, whether they're linear or not. But hopefully by taking a lot of those things and getting a lot of those general courses out of the way, you should have less time, hopefully at our institutions based on what you have chosen. So I would think it could be very important to kind of list that, just so that there's an advisor that's working with you right away that can make sure that they're getting you to the proper courses and working you towards that time to graduation.
I would echo the same exact thing Adam said. I think he hit all the points about, the gen eds, the guaranteed agreements. Of course, you can transfer in the credits. One thing to remember is to just make sure that you request that official transcript once that associate's degree has been conferred by the community college. Make sure you request it to be sent to the admissions office or the registrar, whomever handles it at those specific institutions, so that those credits can be evaluated, preferably before you do your orientation and scheduling. That way, all the advisors are aware of your credit. Your time at the university will probably be shortened because you don't have that full course load to still take, with some of your gen eds being knocked out, depending on what you major in. And then, of course, you would still go through the freshman application and do everything as you normally would. You'll just be coming in with more credit. So those are some very important key things so that nothing gets mixed up in the process.
All right, thank you all so much for attending today. Such great information again. We will be sending this out as a recording as well, so you can view later if you want to. And this concludes our third day of our live boot camp. We look forward to seeing everyone that has signed up for our mini college expo tomorrow. And as always, feel free to contact your school counselor or career counselor with any further questions. Thank you.